Today's gospel has one of those lines that sometimes gets glossed over, but it's incredibly revealing. And it's, when King Herod heard of the newborn king, he was greatly troubled. See, Herod was, to put it lightly, a bully. He ruled through fear and manipulation, building his kingdom on lies and bloodshed. He even executed his own wife and some of his sons to protect his power. So, what could make a tyrant like that so troubled? Well, Herod knew that when the Magi came, asking, "Where is the newborn king of the Jews?" that his hold on power was over. That if there really was a divine king, then his own throne was counterfeit. And the gospel adds, all Jerusalem was troubled with him. See, Herod's fear infected the entire city. The priests and scholars, well, they knew the prophecy. They knew that Bethlehem was going to be the place where the king was to be born. But notice, none of them went. They had knowledge, but not faith. Religion, but no courage. And it might be easy for us to judge them, but only if we're ready to examine ourselves. I mean, we all build our own personal kingdoms, right? Our careers, reputations, comfort, control. And when those kingdoms are challenged, and they always are, we're forced to ask, what must I change? What must I surrender? And that is when resistance rises. And that resistance is the Herod that's in every one of our hearts. That instinct to cling to control is the same spirit that has actually spilled out into our culture, where truth is reduced to a feeling, where every choice demands affirmation, leaving the gospel treated more like opinion rather than command. And that popular sentiment leaves us hesitant to defend life, marriage, and God's created order out of fear of judgment. Because we've been promised that if we only silence God's law, stop fearing this higher king's authority, then freedom and liberation are going to follow. Yet we can simply look at our screens and realize that we've grown more restless, anxious, divided, just like Jerusalem under Herod's insecurity. But here's the great thing, at least in my opinion, the church has survived worse than us for over 2,000 years. And it did it by proclaiming his kingship, not by negotiating it. Our gospel shows that Christ came not to blend in, but to bring light. That his kingdom begins not in a palace, but with humility in a manger, offering peace through surrender to those that would ask for it. Our choice today is the same as it was back then. Is it going to be Herod's troubled Jerusalem or Bethlehem's humble stable? The Magi, well, they chose wisely. They left comfort, they journeyed into the unknown, they knelt before the child and offered treasures, symbols of wealth, worship, sacrifice. And that defines Christian life. Allegiance, adoration, self-offering. If Christ reigns, then we surrender what is our treasure, our hearts, our habits, our time, our will. Now, a lot of you know my story, so that you know that I'm not just standing up here pointing fingers. Because for a good chunk of my life, I tried to live religion on my own terms, away from the full life of the church, bowing at the altar of substance abuse. I told myself, I knew enough that I can define my own version of Christianity and still be fine. But you know what? The more I pushed God's church and his commandments away, the more restless and empty I became inside. When grace finally broke through my stupid pride, I was definitely troubled. And it was painful. But that troubling was actually the beginning of healing. See, coming home to the Catholic Church, to confession, to the Eucharist, and seeking freedom from addiction, well, as it turned out, I wasn't losing my kingdom, I was discovering his. You see, God troubles us only to heal us. Because all false kingdoms crumble. All human thrones, even those ones of our making, fall. But the kingdom that was born in Bethlehem, it endures forever. It began in humility, was crowned with the cross. It stands victorious in the Eucharist that we celebrate today. And how awesome is that? That through the Holy Communion, the same Christ that terrified Herod enters into our hearts, not to enslave us, but to reign in love. So, stop fearing the cost of faith. The world might call you rigid or judgmental, old-fashioned. You know what? Let them talk. Because it's better to stand with Christ and be opposed by the world than to stand with the world and be opposed by him. So today, let each of us not only name our own thrones, but abdicate them. Step down and kneel before Christ, the King. Obey him in daily life. Defend his truth in public. And then watch what happens. The fear of Herod will give way to the joy of Bethlehem. And a troubled world, a troubled you, will begin to heal with the love and humility of Christ, one faithful heart at a time.